The Letter You Were Never Supposed to Read, a Romantic Sleep Story. Chapter 1. The Letter in the Rain. The rain had been falling over Bellwether for 3 days, not the violent kind that rattled windows and flooded streets, but the soft, patient rain that seemed determined to make the entire town quieter. Mara Ellis liked that kind of rain. It made people stay indoors. It softened footsteps on the pavement. It blurred the lights outside her bedroom window until the town looked like a watercolor painting. She had lived in Bellwether for almost 6 months, working at a small second-hand bookstore called the Blue Hour. The bookstore belonged to an elderly woman named Evelyn Hart, who had a habit of saying that books knew where they wanted to live. Mara had always thought that was ridiculous, until the letter arrived. It was a Thursday evening. Mara was closing the bookstore when she noticed the envelope. It had fallen behind a stack of old novels on the bottom shelf. The envelope was yellowed with age, sealed with dark red wax. Her name was written across the front. Mara Ellis. She froze. There was no return address. She turned it over. Nothing. The handwriting was elegant, slightly uneven and strangely familiar. She opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The first sentence made her heart stop. "My dearest Clara." Mara frowned. Her name wasn't Clara. She read on. "If you are reading this, then I have failed to give you this letter myself. I know what everyone will tell you. They will say I left because I was afraid. They will say I never loved you. Please don't believe them. I loved you so much that leaving became the only thing I knew how to do." Mara lowered the letter. This wasn't hers. She should have put it back. She knew that. Instead, she kept reading. "There is one thing you must never discover. The truth about that night." A chill moved across her shoulders. At the bottom of the page was a name. Julian. Mara whispered it without meaning to. Julian. The bell above the bookstore door suddenly rang. She looked up. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, dark coat, rain shining on his shoulders. His hair was slightly wet, and his expression was unreadable. Mara had seen him before, several times. He came into the bookstore every Sunday afternoon and always bought one book. He never spoke more than necessary. Evelyn called him Julian Vale. Mara had never asked why. His eyes moved from her face to the letter in her hand. For the first time since she had met him, his calm expression disappeared. "You shouldn't have that." Mara's fingers tightened around the paper. "Why?" Julian stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Because," he said quietly, "that letter was never supposed to be found." The rain continued tapping against the windows, and somewhere inside the old bookstore, a clock began to tick. Mara looked down at the signature again. Julian. Then she looked back at the man standing in front of her. "You wrote this?" Julian didn't answer. He simply stared at her, and Mara realized that whatever had happened between Julian and Clara years ago, someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep it secret. Chapter 2. The man who knew too much. Julian Vale did not take the letter from her. That surprised Mara. She had expected him to demand it. Instead, he stood several feet away, looking at her as though he were trying to decide whether she could be trusted. "Who is Clara?" Mara asked. Julian looked toward the rain-covered window. "Someone who doesn't live here anymore. Is she alive?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." The answer came too quickly. Mara noticed. "So you know where she is?" "I know where she was. That's not the same thing." "No." The silence between them became uncomfortable. Mara placed the letter on the counter. "I found it behind a book." "I know." "You know?" Julian finally looked at her. "I put it there." Mara stared. "Why?" "Because I thought no one would find it." "You hid a letter in a bookstore." "I hid it in a book." "That's not better." A faint smile appeared on his face. It was the first time Mara had seen him smile. It made him look younger, more dangerous. "You're right." She folded her arms. "Who is Clara?" Julian looked at the letter. "Someone I loved." Mara felt an unexpected twist of jealousy. It was absurd. She barely knew him. Still, the words bothered her. Someone I loved. Past tense. She told herself that was all that mattered. Did she love you? Julian didn't answer. That silence told her enough. Mara pushed the letter toward him. Take it. He didn't move. I don't want it. Why? Because you found it. That doesn't make it mine. No. He stepped closer. That's exactly why it worries me. Mara could smell rain on his coat. Something warm and woody beneath it. She looked up at him. He was too close. Why would finding a letter worry you? Because there are things in that letter that could hurt people. People like Clara. People like me? His voice was softer now. Mara swallowed. Then tell me the truth. Julian's eyes met hers. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. She hated how calm he remained. She hated even more that part of her wanted to know everything about him. Julian picked up the letter. For a moment their fingers touched. Neither moved. Then he pulled his hand away. Forget this happened. Mara laughed quietly. That's your advice. It's the safest advice I can give you. You're not very good at making people listen. I've noticed. He walked toward the door. Mara watched him. Then something inside her snapped. Julian. He stopped. Why did you come here tonight? He turned. His eyes were darker than before. Because I knew you would find it. Mara's heart skipped. What? I've been watching that shelf for months. He opened the door. Good night, Mara. Then he disappeared into the rain. Mara remained behind the counter. She looked at the empty doorway, then at the letter, and finally at the sentence she had not finished reading. There was another page. She hadn't noticed it before. Slowly she unfolded it. Only 4 words were written there. She was never the one. Mara stared at the sentence. Then she heard footsteps outside. Julian had stopped. He was standing beneath the bookstore's awning, and he was looking directly at her through the glass. Chapter 3. Clara's photograph. Mara did not sleep that night. She tried. She turned off the lamp, closed the curtains, put the letter inside a drawer, then opened the drawer again 10 minutes later. By 2 a.m, she was sitting on the floor beside her bed, reading the letter for the 7th time. The words were still the same. I loved you so much that leaving became the only thing I knew how to do. She was never the one. Who was she? Clara? Someone else? And why had Julian hidden the letter? The next morning, Mara arrived at the bookstore early. Evelyn was already there. The old woman was arranging flowers in a glass jar. You look tired, she said. I didn't sleep. Ah. Evelyn didn't ask why. Instead, she pushed a cup of tea toward Mara. Someone came looking for you yesterday. Mara stopped. Who? Evelyn smiled. Julian. Mara's stomach tightened. What did he want? He asked whether you had found anything unusual. Mara stared at her. And what did you say? I said no. Why? Because I like you. Mara blinked. Evelyn returned to her flowers. Also because Julian is a complicated man. You know about Clara. Evelyn's hands stopped moving. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she sighed. Everyone in Bellwether knows about Clara. Who was she? Julian's fiancée. Mara felt strangely cold. Fiancée? Once? What happened? Evelyn looked toward the rain-streaked window. She disappeared. Disappeared? She left Bellwether one night. With Julian. No. Mara waited. Alone. Evelyn walked toward an old cabinet. From the bottom drawer she removed a photograph. She placed it on the counter. Mara looked down. There was Julian, younger, perhaps 24, standing beside a beautiful woman with dark hair. Clara. They were smiling, but something about the photograph bothered Mara. Julian wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at Clara, with a tenderness that was almost painful. She was beautiful, Mara whispered. Yes. Did he love her? Very much. Mara looked at Evelyn. And did she love him? Evelyn hesitated. I think she did. That answer stayed with Mara. That afternoon Julian came into the bookstore. He looked at Mara. She looked at him. Neither smiled. You knew, she said. About what? Clara. Julian's expression changed. Evelyn showed you the photograph. Yes. He walked toward her. You shouldn't be involved. Stop saying that. Mara, no. She stepped closer. You don't get to walk into my bookstore, leave mysterious letters behind, stare at me like you know something about me, and then tell me I'm not involved. His eyes narrowed. I don't stare at you. You do. I don't. You really do. For a moment, something almost playful passed between them, then it disappeared. Julian looked away. Clara was my fiancée. I know. We were supposed to get married. What happened? He was silent. Then he said quietly, She discovered something about my family. What? I don't know. Mara frowned. You don't know? She never told me. Then why did she leave? Julian looked directly at her. Because she believed I had betrayed her. Mara felt a strange sadness. Did you? No. His answer was immediate. But she believed you did. Yes. Why? Julian stepped closer. His voice dropped. Because someone wanted her to believe it. Mara stared at him. Who? Julian's expression hardened. I don't know. He paused. But I think they're back.
Chapter 4. The Rules of Falling. After that day, Julian became impossible to ignore. He came into the bookstore every afternoon. Sometimes he bought nothing. Sometimes he picked up the same old novel, carried it around for 20 minutes, then put it back. Mara knew what he was doing. He was watching her. She pretended not to notice. It became a game. A dangerous one. One evening, after Evelyn left, Mara found Julian sitting in the reading corner. You don't even like books, she said. He looked up. I like some. You've been holding the same book for half an hour. I like this one. You haven't opened it. I've been distracted. By what? He looked at her. Mara regretted asking. By you. The answer was so simple that she didn't know what to say. Julian closed the book. Mara, this is a bad idea. What is? Whatever this is. There is no this. You're right. He stood. There shouldn't be. She hated the disappointment she felt. Then why do you keep coming here? His expression softened. Because I don't seem to be very good at staying away from you. The words hung between them. Mara looked down. That's your problem. I know. Not mine. I know. She smiled despite herself. You always say that. Because it's true. He moved closer. She could feel the warmth of him. There's something you should know. What? I don't make good decisions. Neither do I. That's not comforting. It wasn't supposed to be. He smiled. Then he touched her hand. Just lightly. Mara didn't pull away. The touch was innocent. But it made everything feel less innocent. Julian. I know. What? We shouldn't. She looked at him. Then stop. He didn't. Neither did she. For one brief moment, the world outside disappeared. Then Julian stepped back. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Mara's heart sank. You regret it? No. His voice was almost a whisper. That's the problem. He left soon after. Mara stood alone in the bookstore. She knew she should stay away from him. He was secretive, complicated, possibly dangerous. And there was another woman somewhere in his past whose disappearance was connected to everything. Still, when Mara locked the door that night, she found herself hoping he would return tomorrow. She hated that. She hated herself for it. But she couldn't deny the truth. Julian Vale was becoming a habit. And habits were difficult to break, especially when they felt like desire. Chapter 5. The Second Letter. The second letter arrived 3 days later. This time, it wasn't hidden. It was waiting beneath the bookstore door. Mara recognized the handwriting immediately. Julian's. She opened it. Mara, if you're reading this, I'm probably making another mistake. You asked me who betrayed Clara. The truth is, I don't know. But I know one thing. Clara believed I was in love with someone else. Mara stopped reading. Her heart beat faster. She found a letter addressed to another woman. That letter was never written by me. Someone forged it. Mara's hands trembled. The woman in that letter was never identified. Until now. Mara stared at the page. The next line was almost impossible to read. I think it was about you. She read it again. And again. Then the bookstore door opened. Julian entered. Mara held up the letter. You wrote this? Yes. You think Clara thought you were in love with me? I didn't know your name then. Then why me? I don't know. That's not an answer. I know. She stepped toward him. Who knew about me? No one. Then how could someone write a letter involving me? Julian's expression changed. That's what scares me. Mara folded the letter. Tell me everything. I can't. Why? Because if I tell you everything, you may hate me. She looked at him. Maybe I should. You probably should. You're very convincing. I've been trying to make me hate you. Trying to keep you safe. Mara laughed bitterly. You don't get to decide what's safe for me. Julian looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that made her chest tighten. I know. He walked closer. But I also know what happens when people get too close to me. Maybe I don't care. You should. I don't. His eyes dropped to her lips. The room became very quiet. That's why you're dangerous, he whispered. For you. For both of us. He kissed her. It was brief. Almost restrained. But it was enough. When he stepped away, Mara could barely breathe. That was a mistake, he said. She stared at him. Was it? His expression was tortured. No. He touched her cheek. That's why it was a mistake. Then the bell above the door rang. Someone entered. Julian immediately stepped away. A man stood in the doorway. Mara didn't recognize him. But Julian did. His face became completely cold. Victor. The stranger smiled. Julian. Then he looked at Mara. And smiled again. I see you finally met her. Chapter 6. The Jealous Man. Victor Hale was charming in the way some dangerous people were charming. Perfect coat. Perfect smile. Perfect manners. Mara disliked him immediately. He approached the counter. You must be Mara. How do you know my name? Victor smiled. Julian talks. Julian's voice was cold. Not about her. Victor glanced at him. Perhaps not to you. The tension between them was obvious. Mara looked from one man to the other. Who is he? An old friend, Julian said. Victor laughed. That's generous. Leave. I just arrived. Then you can leave again. Victor's smile faded. He looked at Mara. Julian has always been protective of the things he considers his. Mara frowned. I am not his. Julian looked at her. Something complicated passed through his eyes. Victor noticed. Interesting. Mara hated the way he said it. Victor placed a business card on the counter. If you ever want to know what happened to Clara, call me. Julian grabbed the card. Victor walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned. Oh, and Mara. She looked up. Some love stories begin with a kiss. His smile returned. The worst ones begin with a secret. The door closed. Julian immediately tore the card in half. Don't contact him. Why? Because he lies. Then tell me the truth. Julian said nothing. Mara's frustration boiled over. You kissed me. I know. And now you're acting like I'm a child. I'm acting like someone who knows Victor. Then explain. I can't. She stepped closer. Do you love Clara? Julian froze. Mara regretted asking. Finally he said, I loved her. Do you still? No. The answer was quiet. Certain. Mara looked at him. Why? Because she chose to believe I betrayed her. And you never forgave her? I forgave her. Then why do you sound angry? Because I was innocent. He looked away. And because she wasn't the only person I lost. Mara's voice softened. Who else? Julian looked at her. You. But you didn't know me. Not then. The words frightened her. What does that mean? Julian walked toward the door. It means someone has been manipulating our lives for longer than either of us understands. Mara followed him. Julian. He stopped. She grabbed his sleeve. He turned. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mara kissed him. This time, she didn't wait for him to decide. His hands found her waist. The kiss lasted longer. It was messy, confused, almost angry. When they finally separated, Julian rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea. I know. You don't know what you're getting into. Neither do you. He laughed softly. For the first time, Mara saw the man beneath the secrets. And she knew she was already in too deep. Chapter 7. The Night at the Lake. Julian took Mara to the lake the following Saturday. Bellwether Lake sat beyond the town, surrounded by pine trees. The moon reflected on the water. For once, Julian didn't look like a man carrying a secret. He looked peaceful. You bring everyone here? Mara asked. No. Just me. Just you. She smiled. They sat on an old wooden dock. For several minutes, they said nothing. It was comfortable. Then Mara asked, Why did Clara leave? Julian looked at the lake. She thought I was having an affair. With whom? I never knew. Was there someone? No. Then why did she believe it? She found messages. Fake. I think so. Mara looked at him. Why didn't you prove they were fake? I tried. But someone deleted the originals. Mara felt a chill. Who had access? Julian looked at her. My brother. She hadn't known he had a brother. Where is he? Dead. Silence. When? 3 years ago. How? Car accident. Mara stared at the water. And you think his death was connected? I don't know. That's a lot of things you don't know. I know. She smiled faintly. You really need a new sentence. He laughed. Then he looked at her. Do you regret kissing me? No. Even knowing all this? No. He reached for her hand. I don't deserve you. Maybe I don't want someone who deserves me. He smiled. That's probably the most dangerous thing you've said. She leaned against his shoulder. For a while, they watched the moon. Then Julian said, I've been afraid of loving someone again. Because of Clara. Because of what happened after Clara. Mara looked up. What happened? I stopped trusting everyone. Except me. He looked at her. I don't know why. Maybe you should. He kissed her forehead. It was gentle. Almost painfully gentle. But then his phone rang. He answered. His face changed. Where? A pause. Are you sure? Another pause. I'll be there. He ended the call. What happened? Mara asked. Someone broke into my house. Did they steal anything? Julian stood. No. What then? He looked at her. They left something. What? Julian's voice became quiet. Another letter. Mara stood. From Clara. No. He looked toward the dark road. From my brother. Chapter 8. The Brother's Confession. Julian's house was an old stone cottage outside Bellwether. The front door had been forced open. Inside, nothing appeared disturbed. No drawers opened. No furniture overturned. Only one thing had been placed carefully on the dining table. A black envelope. Julian opened it. Inside was a photograph. Mara recognized the woman immediately. Clara. But this wasn't the same photograph Evelyn had shown her. In this one, Clara stood beside another man. A man Mara didn't recognize. On the back were 3 words. Ask your brother. Julian stared at the photograph. My brother knew him. Who is he? I don't know. You said your brother was dead. He is. Then how can we ask him? Julian looked toward a fireplace. There may be a way. Behind an old painting was a small safe. Julian opened it. Inside were notebooks, letters, photographs, documents. Mara looked at him. You knew these existed? No. He opened the first notebook. It belonged to his brother, Adrian. The handwriting was rushed. Julian doesn't know. Clara thinks someone is following her. The woman in the photograph isn't who Julian thinks. Mara leaned closer. What woman? Julian turned the page. A name appeared. Elena Ross. Mara recognized it. That's my mother's name. Julian looked at her. What? My mother. He stared at the page. Mara felt the room shift beneath her. Why would your brother write my mother's name? I don't know. She took the notebook. There were more entries. Elena knows what happened. She promised to protect Mara. If anything happens to me, tell Julian that Clara was never the real target. Mara stopped breathing. Me. Julian nodded slowly. Apparently. She stepped away. This can't be real. Julian reached for her. She pulled back. Don't. Mara. You knew. No. You swear. Yes. She looked at him. Then another page fell from the notebook. Julian picked it up. It contained only one sentence. The girl will eventually find the letter. Beneath it was a date. 20 years earlier. Mara felt dizzy. Someone predicted this. Julian looked at the date. Then at her. Your mother knew my family. And she never told me. No. Why? I don't know. Mara sat down. Her entire childhood suddenly felt like a room with a hidden door. Julian knelt beside her. I'm sorry. She looked at him. You didn't do this. No. But you're still part of it. He nodded. I know. She touched his face. I don't want to lose you because of something that happened before we met. His eyes closed. You may have to. Why? Because whoever started this may still want you. He opened his eyes. And I don't know if I can protect you. Mara whispered. Maybe I don't need protection. She kissed him. This time, there was no hesitation. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. And somewhere in the darkness, someone was watching the house. Chapter 9. The Woman in the Red Coat. The next morning, Mara found the woman. She was standing outside the bookstore. Red coat, black umbrella, dark hair. Mara knew immediately who she was. Clara. She had aged, but not enough to erase the woman from the photograph. Clara smiled sadly. You look like your mother. Mara froze. You knew her? Yes. Why didn't you tell Julian? Because I was afraid. Of him? No. Clara looked toward the street. Of what would happen if he knew the truth? Mara's heart raced. What truth? Clara sighed. I never stopped loving Julian. The words hurt. Mara hated that they did. But I left him. Why? Because someone convinced me he was betraying me. Was he? No. Mara stared. Then why? Because the evidence was perfect. What evidence? Letters. Messages. Photographs. Fake. Yes. Clara looked at Mara. But I didn't know that. Who made them? Clara hesitated. Adrian. Mara's stomach tightened. Julian's brother? Yes. Why? Because he wanted control of the family business. Mara shook her head. That doesn't explain me. No. Clara's eyes filled with sadness. Your mother was involved. How? She discovered what Adrian was doing. What happened? She threatened to expose him. Mara whispered. And then? Adrian threatened her. Clara looked away. Your mother sent you away from Bellwether. Mara's memories returned. The old house. The sudden move. Her mother's silence. The feeling that she had been running from something without understanding why. Why did Adrian die? Clara looked at her. He didn't. Mara stopped breathing. What? Adrian Vale is alive. A car passed on the street. For several seconds, neither woman moved. That's impossible. I saw him 6 months ago. Where? Clara reached into her coat. She handed Mara a photograph. A man standing outside a hotel. Older. Thinner. But unmistakably Julian's brother. Mara looked up. Why are you telling me this? Because the letter you found wasn't meant for you. Then who was it for? Clara smiled sadly. For Julian. She stepped backward. And because he has one weakness. Mara swallowed. What? Clara looked directly into her eyes. You. Then she disappeared into the crowd. Chapter 10. The Betrayal. Mara didn't tell Julian immediately. She couldn't. Not because she wanted to hide it. Because she was afraid. For the first time, she understood that Julian's life had been built around secrets. And now she had one of her own. That evening, Julian came to the bookstore. He looked exhausted. I've been looking for you. Why? Because you weren't answering. Mara avoided his eyes. I needed time. For what? She said nothing. Julian noticed. What happened? Nothing. He stepped closer. Don't lie to me. She looked at him. Why not? Because I can always tell. Maybe you can't. His expression changed. Mara. She pulled away. You knew Clara was alive. He froze. Who told you? That's your first question. He closed his eyes. Where is she? I don't know. What did she say? She said Adrian is alive. Julian went completely still. That's impossible. She showed me a photograph. Let me see it. Mara handed it to him. His face drained of color. Where did she get this? I don't know. He looked at Mara. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Because I was scared. Of me. Of everything. Julian turned away. Mara felt tears rising. I didn't betray you. I know. Then why are you angry? I'm not angry at you. He turned back. I'm angry because I thought I finally had one person I could trust. The words hurt. So you don't trust me? I do. Then say it. I trust you. Say it again. I trust you. She stepped closer. Then trust me. He looked at her. I love you. The words surprised both of them. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Julian touched her face. I didn't mean to say that. Why? Because once I say it, I can't take it back. Don't. He kissed her. But this time there was sadness in it. A feeling that something was ending before it had truly begun. Then Julian's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed. Where? He listened. Then looked at Mara. Clara was found. Mara's heart stopped. Where? At the lake. They drove through the night. When they arrived, the police were already there. Clara was alive, barely conscious. Beside her was another envelope. Julian opened it. Inside was a single sentence. You should have left her alone. Mara felt Julian's hand close around hers. For the first time, she realized something terrible. This wasn't about the past anymore. Someone was threatening them now. Chapter 11. The House with No Lights. They left Bellwether before sunrise. Julian took Mara to an abandoned family house deep in the countryside. There were no neighbors, no lights, no telephone, only trees and silence. Are we safe here? Mara asked. For tonight. She looked at him. You don't sound convinced. I'm not. They entered the house. Julian locked the door. Then another. Then another. Mara watched him. How many locks does this place have? Enough. She smiled faintly. You're terrible at relaxing. I'll work on it. They sat beside the fireplace. For a while, neither spoke. Then Mara said, Tell me about Adrian. Julian stared into the flames. He was my older brother. Did you love him? Yes. Even now. Julian took a long breath. Some part of me always will. Mara took his hand. Even if he hurt people. That's what makes it difficult. He looked at her. I spent years believing I had failed him. Why? Because he became everything my father wanted. Successful. Powerful. Julian smiled sadly. I became the disappointment. Why? Because I wanted a simple life. Mara squeezed his hand. And did you get one? He looked at her. Not anymore. She smiled. Sorry. Don't be. He kissed her forehead. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind moved through the trees. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Then Mara noticed something. A light. Far away. Between the trees. She stood. Julian. He turned. What? There's someone outside. The light disappeared. Julian immediately stood. Stay here. No. Mara. I'm not staying alone. He grabbed a flashlight. They went outside. The woods were silent. No footsteps. No person. Only a small metal box sitting beneath a tree. Julian opened it. Inside was another letter. This one was addressed to Mara. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. Dear Mara, your mother lied to you because she wanted you to have a normal life. But normal was never an option. The man you love is not responsible for what happened. But his family is. Mara looked at Julian. He was pale. The letter continued. If you want the truth, go back to the blue hour. Look behind the clock. The final answer has been waiting there since the night your mother left. Mara lowered the paper. Julian stared into the darkness. Someone wanted us to find this. Yes. Why? He looked at her. Because they want us to finish the story. Mara stepped closer. Then let's finish it. Julian took her hand. Together. She nodded. Together. He kissed her. This time there was no fear, only certainty. And somewhere in the forest, a man watched them through the trees. Julian Vale had finally come home. Chapter 12. Behind the Clock. The blue hour was empty when they returned. Evelyn had left the key under the flower pot. Mara unlocked the door. The bookstore smelled exactly as it always had. Old paper. Wood. Rain. Home. She walked toward the grandfather clock. Julian followed. "Your mother knew Evelyn," he said. "Apparently." Mara moved the clock. Behind it was a small wooden compartment. Inside was a box. Her name was written on it. Mara opened it. There was a photograph. Her mother, Evelyn, Adrian, and Julian, all standing together 20 years earlier. Mara stared. Julian. He looked at the photograph. I was 6. On the back was a date. And beneath it, the night everything changed. There was also a letter. Mara opened it. My daughter, if you are reading this, then I failed to keep the past away from you. Adrian discovered that I knew about his dealings. He threatened me. I threatened to expose him. He told me that if I spoke, Mara would disappear. Mara's hands trembled. I trusted Evelyn to protect you. I trusted Julian because he was the only member of that family who had no part in it. Mara looked at Julian. He was staring at the floor. The letter continued. But Adrian discovered that Julian loved Clara. He used her. He created false letters. He wanted Julian to lose everything. And when that failed, he came after Mara. Mara stopped reading. Why me? Julian took the letter. The final paragraph answered. Because Adrian believed Mara would one day inherit what he could not control. The truth. There was a final sentence. If Julian is beside you when you read this, then trust him. Mara folded the letter. Tears filled her eyes. Julian looked at her. I never knew. I know. I should have protected you. You didn't even know me. I knew enough. He stepped closer. I knew you the moment I saw you. Mara looked up. What do you mean? The first day you came into the bookstore. She smiled through tears. You remember. I remember everything. He touched her cheek. Especially the way you smiled when you thought no one was watching. She laughed softly. That's ridiculous. I know. Then a voice came from the darkness. It always was. Julian turned. Adrian stood near the entrance. Older. Calm. Smiling. Mara's blood ran cold. Adrian looked at Julian. You always were sentimental. Julian stepped in front of Mara. Stay behind me. Adrian laughed. Still protecting everyone. Then he looked at Mara. Just like your mother. The lights went out. Chapter 13. The letter that changed everything. Darkness filled the bookstore. Mara heard Julian move. Then Adrian's voice. You should have left the letter alone. Julian answered. You should have stayed dead. A long silence followed. Adrian laughed. I suppose we both made mistakes. The emergency lights flickered on. Adrian stood several feet away. He looked strangely ordinary. That was what frightened Mara most. He wasn't a monster. He was simply a man who had made terrible choices. You destroyed Clara's life, Julian said. I gave her a choice. You lied to her. I showed her what she wanted to believe. Julian stepped forward. Why, Mara? Adrian looked at her. Because your mother knew too much. And my inheritance. Adrian smiled. That was never the real reason. Mara frowned. Then what was? Adrian looked at Julian. Because you were the only person she trusted. Julian stared at him. Adrian continued. I knew if I wanted to hurt you, I needed someone you loved. Mara felt Julian's hand find hers. Adrian smiled. And then something unexpected happened. What? You actually fell in love. Julian's expression hardened. You used Clara. Yes. You used my brother. Yes. You threatened Mara's mother. Yes. Why? Adrian's smile disappeared. Because I wanted control. The simplicity of the answer was almost worse than an excuse. Mara stepped forward. You destroyed lives for control. Yes. And you think you'll get away with it? No. Adrian looked toward the door. That's why I came here. He placed an envelope on the counter. I want you to read this. Mara didn't move. Julian did. Inside was a confession. Every forged letter. Every false message. Every manipulation. Every payment. Everything. Adrian had documented it all. Why? Mara asked. He looked tired now. Because I'm tired. Julian stared at him. You expect forgiveness? No. Then what? Nothing. Police sirens sounded outside. Adrian smiled faintly. You called them? Julian shook his head. Mara looked toward Evelyn's office. The old woman stepped out. I did. Adrian nodded. Of course. He looked at Mara one final time. Your mother was right. About what? Julian was always worth trusting. Then he surrendered. The bookstore became silent again. Mara stood beside Julian. For the first time in years, the truth had no place left to hide. Julian turned toward her. It's over. She shook her head. No. He looked confused. It's not over. She touched his face. It's beginning. Then she kissed him. Outside, the rain began to fall. Softly, like the first night they met. Chapter 14. The Letter After the Letter. 6 months had passed since Adrian Vale was arrested. Bellwether had slowly returned to normal. The gossip faded. The newspapers stopped coming. People stopped whispering whenever Julian entered the bookstore. But Mara knew that some things never completely returned to the way they were. Especially love. Love had changed for her. Before Julian, she had believed love was supposed to feel safe, simple, predictable. Now she knew better. Sometimes love arrived carrying secrets. Sometimes it frightened you. Sometimes it made you question everything you thought you understood. And sometimes, somehow, it still became home. The blue hour was nearly empty that evening. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Julian sat behind the counter with a cup of coffee, pretending to read. Mara watched him from across the room. You've been reading the same page for 20 minutes. Julian looked up. I'm thinking. About the book. No. About me. Always. She smiled. You've become shameless. I blame you. For what? Making me comfortable. Mara walked toward him. You weren't comfortable when I met you. I was miserable. That's dramatic. It's accurate. She sat beside him. For a moment, they listened to the rain. Then Julian reached into his coat. I found something. Mara looked at him. What? He placed a small envelope on the table. Her heart immediately tightened. No. He smiled. It's not another mystery. That's exactly what you would say if it were. I promise. She opened it. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was familiar. Her mother's. Mara's breath caught. I thought we had everything. So did I. She unfolded the page. My daughter, if you are reading this, then perhaps the truth finally found you. There is something I never told you about Julian. Mara looked up. Julian was watching her. Keep reading. She continued. When you were 6, Julian once found you crying beside the lake. You had lost a small silver necklace. He searched for almost an hour until he found it. You probably don't remember. Mara stopped. She remembered the necklace. She remembered the lake. She remembered a boy kneeling beside her. A boy with dark hair. A boy who had smiled and handed her the necklace. She looked at Julian. You. He nodded. I remembered you. Mara stared at him. You knew me before. I knew a little girl who cried because she thought she'd lost something important. And you never told me? I wasn't sure it was you. She laughed softly. How could you not know? You changed. So did you. He smiled. Her mother's letter continued. There are people who enter our lives twice. The first time, we don't understand why. The second time, we finally do. Mara folded the letter. Her eyes were wet. Julian reached for her hand. I think your mother knew. Knew what? That we'd find each other. Mara leaned against him. Outside, the rain grew softer. For once, there were no secrets left between them. Or so they thought. Because beneath her mother's final sentence was another line. One Mara had never seen before. There is still one letter you haven't found. Chapter 15. The Woman Who Waited. Mara didn't sleep. Again. She was beginning to suspect that mysterious letters were personally responsible for ruining her sleeping schedule. At breakfast, she told Julian. He laughed. Maybe we should stop reading letters. That's your solution. It worked for 6 months. It didn't. Fair. They returned to the bookstore. Mara searched behind shelves. Inside drawers. Under old carpets. Nothing. Julian searched the clock. The safe. Even the fireplace. Nothing. By evening, Mara was exhausted. I give up. Julian looked at her. You don't. I do. You've never given up. I once gave up on learning French. That's different. I also gave up running. That's also different. She laughed. Then the bookstore bell rang. An elderly woman entered. Mara didn't recognize her. The woman wore a long gray coat and carried a faded umbrella. She looked around the bookstore. Then directly at Mara. You look like your mother. Mara froze. Everyone keeps saying that. The woman smiled. Because it's true. Do I know you? No. She walked toward the counter. But I knew Elena. Mara's heart quickened. Who are you? My name is Rose. Julian came closer. The woman's expression changed when she saw him. You've grown. Julian stared. Have we met? Once. When? When you were a child. Julian looked confused. Rose reached into her bag. She removed a small wooden box. I was asked to give this to Mara when she was ready. Mara stared. By whom? Your mother. Her fingers trembled as she accepted it. Inside was a silver key. Nothing else. What does it open? Rose smiled. Something you don't know you have. Mara frowned. That isn't helpful. No. Rose looked at Julian. Your mother wanted you to find the answer yourself. Why? Because some truths are dangerous when handed to us. Rose walked toward the door. Mara followed. Wait. Rose turned. Did my mother know Julian's family? She knew more than she ever told you. Did she trust Adrian? No. Did she trust Julian? Rose smiled. Completely. Then she left. Mara looked at Julian. What does the key open? He shook his head. I have no idea. They searched the bookstore again. Nothing. Then Mara noticed something. The key had a tiny engraving. A number. 27. Julian looked at it. Locker. Where? The old railway station. They looked at each other. Neither wanted to say it, but they both knew. The mystery wasn't finished. Chapter 16. Locker 27. The old railway station had been abandoned for years. Most of the windows were broken. Weeds grew between the tracks. The waiting room smelled of dust and rain. Julian carried a flashlight. Mara held the key. Are you sure this is a good idea? No. Good. Why? I was worried you had finally become sensible. He smiled. They found the lockers along the back wall. Most were rusted shut. Number 27 was different. The lock looked new. Mara inserted the key. Click. The door opened. Inside was a suitcase. Black. Small. Locked. Julian frowned. There must be another key. Mara looked at the suitcase. There was a piece of paper taped to it. For Mara. She removed it. The handwriting was her mother's. You will probably be angry with me. Mara whispered. Already. She continued. But I wanted you to have something that belonged to your future, not your past. Inside the suitcase was an old dress, a photograph, a journal, and a small velvet box. Mara opened the box. Inside was a ring. Not an engagement ring. A simple silver band. Julian looked at it. What is it? Mara turned it over. There was an engraving. J+M. Her heart stopped. Julian stared. That's impossible. Mara looked at him. Why? Because those initials weren't there when I was a child. She turned the ring over again. On the inside was another inscription. Some stories begin before we remember them. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Then she opened the journal. The first page contained a date. 20 years earlier. Her mother's writing filled the pages. She had written about Bellwether, about Adrian, about Clara, and about Julian. But one entry made Mara stop. Julian has promised to protect Mara. He doesn't understand what that promise means yet. One day, she may love him. Mara looked at Julian. He seemed stunned. Your mother predicted us. Or hoped for us. He shook his head. That's impossible. Mara smiled. After everything we've been through, you're still worried about what's impossible? He laughed. Then the mood changed. Julian looked at the ring. Do you want it? Mara looked at him. Why? Because it was meant for you. She took it. He watched as she slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Julian's eyes softened. You know what that means. What? He took her hand. It means your mother had better taste than I do. Mara laughed. Then Julian kissed her. Slowly, tenderly. The abandoned station disappeared around them. For a few seconds, there was only warmth. Then a sound echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. They separated. Julian turned toward the darkness. Someone else was inside the station. Chapter 17. The Shadow at the Station. The footsteps stopped. Julian raised the flashlight. Nothing. Mara, stay behind me. She rolled her eyes. You're still doing that? Yes. You know I'm capable of standing beside you. I know. Then let me. He reached for her hand. Fine. They walked through the hallway together. At the end was an open door. Beyond it, The platform stretched into darkness. Rain fell across the abandoned tracks. No one was there. Mara noticed something on the ground. An envelope. She picked it up. Julian immediately said, "Don't." She looked at him. "Seriously?" "Yes." She smiled. "We're never going to learn." She opened it. Inside was a photograph. Mara and Julian, taken outside the bookstore. 3 days earlier. They were standing together beneath the awning. Mara felt cold. "Someone has been watching us." Julian stared at the photograph. "Yes." There was another photograph. This one showed Mara sleeping beside her bedroom window. Her blood ran cold. "Julian." He took it from her. His expression became terrifyingly calm. "We're leaving." "Who took this?" "I don't know." "Is it Adrian?" "No." "How do you know?" "Because Adrian is in prison." Julian looked toward the darkness. "And this person isn't afraid of being seen." They hurried back toward the car. Mara noticed Julian was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking?" "That I've been selfish." "What?" "I thought keeping you close would protect you." He stopped walking. "But maybe loving you made you a target." Mara turned toward him. "Don't. I should have stayed away." "No." "Mara." She grabbed his coat. "You don't get to decide that alone." His eyes softened. "You deserve someone uncomplicated." "I don't want uncomplicated." "You deserve someone safe." "I want you." The words silenced him. Mara stepped closer. "I know you're afraid." "I'm terrified." "Of losing me?" "More than anything." She touched his cheek. "Then don't lose me." He kissed her. It wasn't gentle this time. It was desperate, like he was trying to memorize her. When they separated, Mara whispered, "We'll face this together." Julian nodded, but neither of them noticed the figure standing on the opposite side of the railway tracks, watching, waiting, and holding another photograph. This one was 20 years old. It showed 2 children beside a lake, a little girl and a little boy. On the back was written, "They were always meant to find each other." Chapter 18. The Promise. The next morning, Julian took Mara to the lake, the same lake where they had first discovered Adrian's secrets. But the morning was beautiful. Fog floated above the water. Birds moved quietly between the trees. Mara sat on the old dock. Julian sat beside her. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, he said, "I need to tell you something." Mara looked at him. "That usually means trouble." He smiled. "Maybe." He took her hand. "I've spent years believing love was something that happened to other people." "Why?" "Because everyone I loved eventually disappeared." Mara squeezed his hand. "Clara left. My brother betrayed me. Your parents. My father died before we could repair things." He looked at the water. "I thought if I never loved anyone deeply again, I couldn't lose anyone." Mara leaned against him. "Did it work?" "No." "Why?" "Because then you arrived." She smiled. He looked at her. "You made everything worse." She laughed. "That's romantic." "I mean it." He kissed her forehead. "You made me want things again." "What things?" "A home." She became quiet. "A future." Her heart beat faster. "And?" He smiled. "You." Mara looked down. "Julian." "I know it's fast." "It's not. I don't want to pressure you." "You aren't." "I just—" He paused. "I don't want another letter to decide our lives." Mara looked at him. "What do you mean?" I want to choose. He reached into his pocket. There was no ring. Only a small folded piece of paper. Mara opened it. It was blank. She looked confused. Julian smiled. Exactly. What's this? The first letter I'm writing myself. He took a pen. Then wrote, Dear Mara, I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I don't know whether our life will be easy. But I know I want to be there. I want to wake up beside you. I want to argue about stupid things. I want to grow old enough to complain about our knees. I want to watch rain with you. I want ordinary days. And if life becomes difficult again, I want to face it with you. He stopped, then handed her the letter. Mara wiped away a tear. That's better than anything my mother wrote. I hope so. She kissed him, long and softly. When they separated, Mara whispered, I choose you too. Julian smiled. And for the first time, neither of them felt like they were running from the past. They were finally walking toward something. Together. Chapter 19. The Last Secret. A year passed. The blue hour became theirs. Mara managed the bookstore. Julian opened a small restoration business in town. They lived in a quiet house near the lake. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes they argued. Sometimes Julian became too protective. Sometimes Mara became stubborn. Sometimes both of them needed silence. But they always returned to each other. One rainy evening, Mara was cleaning an old shelf when she found a book she had never seen before. The cover was plain. No title. Inside was another letter. Her heart sank. Not again. Julian looked up. What? She held it up. He laughed. Maybe leave it alone. Absolutely not. She opened it. The handwriting wasn't her mother's. It wasn't Adrian's. It wasn't Clara's. It belonged to someone else. The first sentence read, If you are reading this, then the story has finally reached its end. Mara continued, There was never a curse. There was never a prophecy. There was only a promise. Mara frowned. The letter explained everything. Years earlier, Elena had asked Evelyn to protect Mara. Evelyn had hidden the letters. Julian's mother had helped. Clara had eventually discovered the truth. And Adrian had spent years trying to destroy the people who knew it. But the final paragraph surprised Mara. The first letter was never meant to expose Adrian. It was meant to bring Mara and Julian together. Mara stared at the page. Julian came closer. That doesn't make sense. She turned the letter over. There was one final line. Your mother knew that some people spend their whole lives looking for home. She wanted you to find yours. Mara's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Julian. Do you think she knew? About us? Yes. He smiled. Maybe. Mara folded the letter. Then she placed it in the old wooden box. That's the last one. Julian nodded. No more letters. Promise. Promise. She smiled. Then the lights flickered. They looked at each other. Julian laughed. Don't. Mara laughed too. I'm not doing anything. The lights came back. The rain continued. Everything was peaceful. Mara rested her head against Julian's shoulder. Do you ever think about that first night? Every day. The letter. The rain. The bookstore. You. She smiled. I was terrified of you. You were curious. I was both. And now. She looked at him. Now I'm still curious. About what? What our next chapter will be. Julian kissed her. Whatever it is, we'll write it ourselves. And this time, there were no hidden letters. No secrets. No ghosts from the past. Only two people choosing each other. Again. Chapter 20. When the rain finally stops. Years later, Mara would still remember the rain. She would remember the first letter, the old bookstore, the red wax seal, the man standing in the doorway, and the strange feeling that her life had changed before she even understood why. But memories changed with time. Fear became nostalgia. Pain became wisdom. And the secrets that once seemed enormous became small pieces of a much larger story. One winter evening, Mara and Julian sat beside the fireplace. Outside, snow covered Bellwether. The bookstore had closed hours ago. Their home was quiet, warm, safe. Julian was reading. Mara was writing. "What are you writing?" he asked. "A letter." He lowered his book. "To whom?" "You." "Why?" "Because apparently we have a tradition." He smiled. Mara finished writing, then folded the paper. She handed it to him. He opened it. "Dear Julian, I used to think the most important letter of my life was the one I was never supposed to read. I was wrong. It was the one I chose to write. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for staying. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real. And thank you for every ordinary day. Those turned out to be my favorite ones." Julian looked up. His eyes were wet. "You're terrible." "Why?" "You made me emotional. You deserve it." He folded the letter carefully. Then he stood and walked toward her. Mara looked up. He kissed her forehead. "I love you. I know. That's all." She smiled. "I love you too." He sat beside her. She rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, snow continued falling. No footsteps. No danger. No mysterious envelopes. Only silence. Peaceful silence. The kind of silence Mara had once loved before she knew how much could hide inside it. Now she loved it for another reason. Nothing was hiding. Everything was exactly where it belonged. Julian's hand rested over hers. The fire crackled softly. The clock ticked. Mara closed her eyes. She thought about the girl she had once been. The girl who found a letter in an old bookstore. The girl who thought she had discovered someone else's love story. She smiled, because she finally understood. The letter had never really belonged to Clara. It had never really belonged to Julian. It had been waiting for Mara, waiting to lead her toward a man she had unknowingly met as a child, waiting to bring two lives together, waiting to become the first page of something neither of them could have predicted. And perhaps that was the secret of love. You don't always recognize the beginning. Sometimes it looks like a mistake. Sometimes it looks like a stranger. Sometimes it looks like a letter you were never supposed to read. But one day, when you look back, you realize every wrong turn brought you somewhere important. Every goodbye made room for another hello. Every secret eventually became a truth. And every lonely night eventually became part of a story worth remembering. Mara opened her eyes. Julian was still beside her. "Still awake," he whispered. "Yes." "Thinking." "Just remembering." "Anything bad?" "No." She smiled. "Just the beginning." He kissed her hand. "Then remember the ending too." "What ending?" "This one." He looked around the quiet room. "The part where we finally get to be happy." Mara smiled. "That's not the ending." Julian raised an eyebrow. "No." She shook her head. "It's just another chapter." He smiled. "Good." The fire burned lower. The room grew quieter. Outside, the snow continued to fall. And somewhere in the old bookstore, inside a wooden box that no one opened anymore, rested a collection of letters. Letters filled with secrets, mistakes, warnings, promises. and one love story. A story that had begun with a letter that was never supposed to be read. But perhaps some letters are not meant to remain hidden. Perhaps some secrets are waiting for the right person. Perhaps some people are meant to find each other twice. Once by accident, and once by choice. Mara closed her eyes. Julian held her hand. The house became still. The night became softer. And for the first time, there was nothing left to discover. Nothing left to fear. Nothing left to chase. Only love. Quiet. Warm. Patient. Like rain against a window. Like a familiar voice in the dark. Like coming home. And as the last light from the fireplace faded, Mara whispered the words she had once been too afraid to say. "I found you." Julian squeezed her hand. "I found you too." Then the room fell silent. The snow kept falling. The night kept moving. And somewhere between waking and dreaming, their story continued. Not because another letter was waiting. Not because another secret needed to be solved. But because some stories never truly end. They simply become part of the dreams we carry with us. The end.